It was not only the bow that brought the foot soldier decisively back into the battlefield. These two weapons were the other successful challenge to feudal cavalry, the long spear and the halberd, and it was the Swiss who mastered them. In the 14th and 15th centuries, they formed up in dense masses of spearmen who spitted the cavalry on their pikes. In the center of this thicket of spears stood soldiers armed with halberds, two-handed swords, or vicious spiked weapons called lucerne hammers. These men stopped the enemy from penetrating the formation and then rushed out to attack him when he wavered. The wounds inflicted by their weapons were horrifying, even by the standards of the day. You can see the effect on this skull, recently dug up from one of the old battlefields. The Swiss gained a sinister reputation for never giving quarter. With the long spear and the bow, the infantry was able to regain its vital role in warfare during these centuries. In many essentials, warfare was now little different from in Greek or Roman times. But a new phenomenon was being introduced that would soon fundamentally change its nature. From the 17th century onwards, the infantryman's life has been dominated by the firearm. Ever since, his tactics have been governed by its changing characteristics, and his training has revolved around the drills required to master it. On the smoky battlefields of the 1600s, the infantryman's firearm was the cumbersome matchlock musket, with an effective range of perhaps 100 yards and a rate of fire of 1 or 2 rounds a minute. The business of priming, loading and firing was slow and painstaking. The musket was heavy, weighing at least 12 pounds, and had to be supported by a forked rest. The musketeer had to keep his match, a length of cord soaked in saltpeter, alight and trimmed. No easy task in wet or windy weather. 17th century infantry formations consisted of a mixture of pikemen and musketeers, and they combined the fire effect of the musket with the physical shock of the pike. The invention of the socket bayonet made the pike obsolete. It fitted over the musket's muzzle, leaving the soldier free to load and fire. Bayonet fights were rare because one side or the other usually ran first. But they certainly happened, as Captain Charles Francois discovered at Borodino. We dashed towards the redoubt and clambered in through the embrasures. I went in just after a piece had been discharged. The Russian gunners received us with handspikes and rammers, and we fought them hand to hand. During the First World War, few soldiers were killed or wounded by bayonets. But for the Australians, with their formidable reputation for toughness, they were a favorite weapon for close combat.
When you were in a trench, you're looking all ways, not knowing which way they're coming. When you're with a bayonet and you're quick enough, you do it quicker than firing.
Right, fire in semicircle, round me!
Modern armies still use the bayonet.
We're running there about that set, get in there so you can all see the bayonet! The bayonet is designed to kill. When a bayonet is produced in battle, fixed to a rifle, the enemy, my goodness, it's got a considerable effect on their morale. Now today I'm going to show you how to kill with a bayonet. What's a bayonet used for?
Kill!
To kill what?
Yeah.
With what?
A bayonet!
Well done, forward! Hey, boss! One thrust at a number of enemy. At the walk, advance! And guard! Da, 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 da! Any questions? Listen everywhere. High forward! What's the aim? To kill! Let's hear it. What's the aim? To kill! Listen in. On guard! High force! Front rank, one thrust and number of enemy. At the double this time. Advance!
Today there are still moments when soldiers meet hand to hand. A few Argentinians died on the bayonet in the Falklands.
Well done! Bring your rifle with you, son. Don't let it go. On guard!
Useful though the bayonet may have been, it was the firearm that really mattered. And technology has transformed it.
It was the Industrial Revolution that changed the face of warfare out of all recognition, as indeed it changed so much else. The inventions, the improved technology, and the mass production of the 19th century introduced new, more reliable, more effective weapons. We can get an idea of the scope and variety of the developments in firearms from this pattern room.
This is the Royal Small Arms Factory at Enfield in England, and there are similar establishments in many other countries. Here can be found a prototype or an example of some 4,000 rifles and machine guns from all over the world.
For nearly 200 years, there had been scarcely any significant developments in weaponry, and now suddenly they came with a rush.
From the flintlock musket to the rifle musket of the American Civil War, the French chassepot, the .303 Lee Enfield, the Vickers medium machine gun, the Bren light machine gun, the German Schmeisser submachine gun, and the new British SA-80. The flintlock Brown Bess was the British musket of the Napoleonic period. The involved process of loading and firing meant the infantrymen fought in line to deliver the maximum firepower.
Fire!
The thin red line was not just poetic fantasy. The rifled musket of the American Civil War had a more reliable percussion lock and fired a conical bullet down a rifled barrel. Yet the process of loading and firing had changed relatively little, and the infantrymen still fought standing up in line.